The sky was red with fire and smoke as war spread across the stars. On the far side of planet Zarian, the human army found an old alien base. Inside that base, they discovered something strange, a giant alien creature locked behind thick glass. It was 8 feet tall with skin like stone and glowing blue scars. Its eyes were black and deep like space, and it stood still. But dangerous soldiers called it a beast. Some said it killed 20 men before capture. Others said it came from a warrior race known as the Dracon. The Dracon were enemies of Earth and had killed thousands in the war. But this creature was different. It was not like other Dracon. It looked lost. It looked angry, but also something else, something broken. Sergeant Ray Carter stood outside the glass chamber with his team. He looked at the alien carefully. It did not roar or attack. It just watched Carter. Asked the scientists what it was doing here. They said it was caught 2 weeks ago after a secret mission. The alien had refused to speak, refused to eat, refused to move. Until now today, it had moved. Today, it had slammed the glass and growled loud. Everyone ran from the chamber, but Carter stayed. He did not move. He stared back at the alien, and the alien stopped. Silence. The alien looked into Carter's eyes. Something passed between them. Like a question without words in the control room, the lead scientist warned Carter. She said no human had lasted more than 10 minutes inside the chamber. She said the alien might break loose. She said this was a bad idea, but Carter said he wanted to try. He wanted to go inside. His team called him crazy. One soldier laughed and said, "You want to talk to a monster?" Carter answered, "Maybe it is not a monster. Maybe it is just alone." They opened the chamber. The door hissed as Carter stepped inside. He walked slowly. His boots echoed on the floor. The alien stood still like a statue. Carter raised both hands to show he had no weapons. The alien tilted its head. Then it copied him. It raised both hands too outside the glass. The scientists gasped. They had never seen this before. Carter took another step. He said slowly, "My name is Ray. Can you understand me?" The alien blinked. Then it spoke in a rough, deep voice. "Ray." It was the first word it had ever said. The scientists began shouting. They said this was impossible. The alien had never spoken any language before. How could it say his name? Carter stayed calm. He asked again, "Who are you?" Alien hesitated, then spoke. Again, "Kale." That was its name, Kale. For a moment there was peace, no sound. Just two beings standing in a room meant for war. Carter asked, "Why did you attack us? Why are your people fighting us?" Kale looked down. He did not answer. Suddenly the alarms began to ring. A signal came in from orbit. A Dracon ship was approaching, not to fight, but to destroy the base. Kale's eyes glowed brighter. He stepped back from Carter. The scientists screamed for Carter to get out. The team outside raised their weapons, growled but did not attack. He looked at Carter. He said, "I am not your enemy." And Carter believed him. He shouted to the team, "Hold your fire. Do not shoot." But they were afraid. They were trained to kill, not to trust. The door closed. The lights went red. The voice on the speaker said, "Kill protocol ready. Just give the command." Carter shouted again. "No, wait." Kale stood tall. His eyes locked on Carter's. One last time the chamber went dark. The screen turned black. The room was cold. No sound, only two heartbeats. One human, one alien. Carter stood still in the middle of the chamber. His hands open. No gun, no armor, just breath. The alien. Kale stood in front of him, 8 feet tall, muscles like stone, eyes like black stars. A silver box lay between them. It held one thin, a small piece of food, human food, dry protein, nothing special. But this was the test. If Kale took the food, it meant he trusted Carter. If he refused, it meant danger, fear, rejection. Outside the chamber, the scientists whispered, all eyes on the glass. Tension like fire in the air. Kale looked down at the box, then looked at Carter, his voice low. "Why offer this?" Carter answered, "Because peace starts small." Kale stepped forward. His heavy foot shook the floor. He knelt, picked up the food, smelled it, paused, then he ate it. Outside the chamber, silence turned into shock. One scientist dropped her pen. Another said he took it. He really took it inside the chamber. Carter smiled, not big, just enough. Kale asked, "Is this what humans do, give food to enemies?" Carter said, Only to those we hope will be friends. Cale stood again. He looked at Carter for a long time. Then he did something no one expected. He copied Carter's stance. Arms open, hands empty like a mirror. It was not a handshake, but it was something a beginning later. In the private lab room, Carter spoke with the head scientist, Dr. Voss. She was not happy. She said, "This thing is not your friend. He is not a man. He is a machine for war." Carter replied. "So was I until someone believed I could be more," she warned him. HQ wants results. They want Cale used for intel or combat, nothing more. Carter asked, "What if he does not want to be used? What if he just wants to be free?" Dr. Voss walked away, leaving behind cold silence and blinking monitors. That night Carter returned to the chamber. Cale sat in the center like a mountain, silent, watching stars through the glass ceiling. Carter sat too few feet away. He asked, "Do you miss your world?" Cale said, "I miss the silence before war." Carter nodded. He understood that feeling. Cale then asked something strange. "Do humans bond through pain or memory?" Carter replied, "Sometimes both." Cale turned to him. "In my world, we share blood to show truth." Carter looked confused. Cale took a sharp shard from his armor, sliced his own palm. Blue blood dripped slowly. He held out his hand. Carter hesitated. This was not protocol. This was not safe. This was not human, but he remembered the look in Cale's eyes. The same look he saw in the mirror during his first battle alone, afraid loss. Carter took the shard, cut his palm. Red blood mixed with blue. Cale whispered, "Now we are bound by truth." At that moment, the lights turned red. Emergency alarm rang. Draken signal detected. Enemy ship nearby. Outside the chamber, panic spread. Security teams ran. Scientists shouted codes inside the chamber. Cale stood up, his eyes glowing bright. He was ready to fight, but not against Carter. He looked at Carter and said, "If I stay, they will use me. If I run, they will hunt me." Carter said, "If you fight with me, I will never let them treat you like a weapon." Cale asked, "Do you promise?" Carter held up his bleeding hand. "I promise." Outside, Dr. Voss watched the camera feed. She whispered to herself, "What have we created?" Darkness, silence, then a pulse like thunder under the skin. Cale was not in the chamber anymore. He stood on a red battlefield, not real, not now, but memory, a simulation forced by machines, by human science. Saw fire falling from the sky. He saw his brothers screaming in a language no human knew. He saw his hands covered in blood, blue and black and burning. Then a voice echoed, "Do you feel fear?" Another voice answered, "Not yet." Cale turned. Carter was standing there. But this was not real. Carter was not really here. This was a test, a mental prison built by humans. To unlock Cale's mind, to see what he really was outside the simulation, Carter stood behind a glass wall, watching Cale's brain activity spike. He shouted, "Stop this. He is not a weapon." But Dr. Voss ignored him. She said, "We must know what he hides inside the simulation." Cale dropped to his knees. Pain rushed through him. He remembered his exile. He remembered refusing orders to burn a village of children. His commanders had punished him, branded him a traitor, then left him to die, but he survived alone. Wounded, angry, and that is when humans found him back in the real chamber. The test ended. Cale collapsed on the ground, sweat across his skin. Breath shallow. Carter ran inside, held him, told him it was over. Cale opened one eye and whispered, "You lied. You said I was not a weapon." Carter looked at Dr. Voss. She looked away. Later that night, Carter went to the restricted floor. He entered the weapons lab. Used a stolen key. He found a chip labeled Project Bond. Kill protocol. His hands shook. The chip had a code. If Cale ever lost control, they could kill him with one signal. Carter whispered, "What have they done?" Suddenly, the door opened. Dr. Voss entered. She was calm, cold. She said, "This is insurance. He is dangerous." Carter replied, "So am I. Should I be chipped too?" Dr. Voss answered, "You are human. He is not." Carter stared at the chip, his voice low. "He saved my life. And you see him as nothing." Voss replied, "Emotion is weakness. He is a test, not a friend." Carter walked out, chip in hand, mind full of fire. The next day, he entered the chamber again. Cale was silent, still hurt, still betrayed. Carter sat beside him, said nothing for a long time. Then he took out the chip, held it in front of Cale. "This Is what they placed inside you. Kale looked, did not touch Carter. Said one code and you die. Kale asked, do you still trust them? Carter said, I trust only what stands beside me when everything burns. Kale spoke. Then we stand together. Suddenly, an alarm, not a test this time, real alert. Base perimeter breached and known forces detected. Dracon shadows moved in the night. Kale stood tall, eyes glowing again, but not with rage, with focus. Carter handed him a small weapon. Said, we fight back together. Kale took the weapon, for the first time as ally, not prisoner. Outside, chaos spread. Soldiers ran, lights flashed, but inside that chamber, two warriors stood ready, a human and the alien he chose to trust. Kale did not sleep like humans. He did not dream like them either. He listened even in silence. The walls breathed. The ground hummed. The sky whispered to him in ways no human could hear tonight. The wind felt wrong, too fast, too sharp, like knives carried. On air, he opened his eyes. Outside the chamber, sirens had not yet screamed, but Kale already knew the hunters were coming. He stood in darkness, body still, mind awake. In the hallway, Carter moved quickly, boots on, steel gun in hand, orders in his ear. Enemy ships had been seen near the ridge, but something was strange. No movement on radar, just shadows and silence. Too silent. Carter reached the main gate. Soldiers formed a line, tension in every step. The sky flickered, and then it began from above, a blast. Not from orbit, but from underground. The ground cracked, explosives from inside. Someone had let the Dracon in. Kale felt the tremor before the humans did. He slammed his fists on the door. Let me out. No reply. He shouted again, louder, until the lock blinked. Green. Carter had opened it remotely from the battle zone. With one word, go. Kale ran through fire and metal, his footsteps louder than explosions. He grabbed a fallen soldier, threw him to safety, took 2 hits from plasma shots without falling. The human troops saw him and froze. Was he here to help or finish them? Kale picked up a broken turret, swung it like a blade, cleared the path. He shouted, behind me, if you want to live. And they followed him in the central command. Dr. Voss watched the screens. Her voice flat. Target is active, engaged with enemy. Should we trigger kill switch? Another officer said. But he is saving our men, she replied. That is not the mission. At the front line, Carter fought with everything he had, his arm bleeding, helmet cracked. He looked up, saw Kale standing over him. Back to back, enemy surrounded them. Carter shouted, fall back. Kale did not move. He said, no, we hold, and he roared. The roar was not human, not a sound, but a wave. It struck fear into the invaders, even made human soldiers pause. Carter stood tall again, next to the monster that had become his shield. Together they pushed forward, flank to flank, steel and fire and bone. But from the command center, Voss gave the order, if he crosses the gate, activate it. The soldier at the panel hesitated. His finger hovered over the button. Carter's voice came through the cum. Do not touch that switch, I repeat. Do not activate it, Voss said. You are emotionally compromised. He is unstable. Carter shouted, he is the only reason half of us are still breathing outside. Kale reached the last wave, his arms covered in burns, one leg wounded. Still standing, he looked back at Carter, and Carter nodded. They charged one final time, and silence followed after the smoke, after the screams. Only breathing remained. Base Delta was saved, but not untouched. Kale sat on the stairs, body broken, eyes calm. Carter sat beside him, offered water. Kale drank it slowly. Around them, soldiers whispered, is he one of us now, or just the thing we needed today? Inside the control room, Dr. Voss watched the heartbeat on screen. Still strong, still alien, she said to herself. He's becoming more human than we expected, and that makes him more dangerous than ever. Kale sat alone in the dark, one arm bandaged, one leg shaking. The wounds from battle had healed quickly, but something deeper had note in front of him, a steel wall, blank cold. He lifted one clawed finger and began to scratch symbols into the metal, not words, not letters, just lines from his own language, each line a memory, each mark a truth. He wrote, they call me monster, but he called me brother. He wrote, I saved them, but they still watch me like I might burn them in their sleep. He paused, then wrote, would he betray me too outside the chamber? Carter argued with Voss, The two stood face to face, tension like a wall between them. Their Voss said the High Command wants Kale transferred to Black Site 7. He is too powerful. Too unknown, Carter replied. He is not a weapon. He is not your project. He is my teammate. She answered, you are a soldier, not his friend. Carter leaned in. Then what am I doing here, risking my life beside him, watching him bleed for us? Dr. Voss gave him a cold look. You were always meant to bring him in, not bond with him. Carter froze. Those words, they hit like a knife. He whispered. You used mesh. Nodded. He trusts you, so he listens to you, so he will follow you. Straight into the cage. Carter left the room without a word. His chest heavy, his breath broken. He walked through the hallway past injured soldiers, past blinking lights toward Kale's chamber. He stopped at the door, watched through the glass. Kale sat with his back to the wall, his fingers still scratching, still writing. Carter opened the door. Kale did not turn around. He said, I heard them. Carter said nothing. Kale said they plan to move me or kill me, or use you to do it. Carter stepped forward. I did not know. Kale turned his head slowly. You know now. Carter looked at the metal wall, saw the marks, the messages. He could not read them, but he felt them. He said, I will not let them take you. Kale asked, will you run with me, or will you obey them? Carter closed his eyes. The weight of every order, every code, every face he had lost, it pressed down on him like a mountain. He opened his eyes again and said, I will stand beside you, even if I have to stand against them. Kale stood tall again, scarred but strong. He said, then we must leave now. Carter nodded. They moved quickly through maintenance shafts, through back doors. Every second the alarm could start, every corner a camera, every hallway a lie. They reached the launch bay. One old ship, half working, half forgotten. Kale moved to power it up. Suddenly, a voice, Dr. Voss on speaker. You cannot escape. You will be hunted. Both of you. Carter pressed the come button. Then let them come. We will not hide. We will fight if we must. But he is not your weapon. Not anymore. The engines came alive. The lights flickered. Security teams arrived, but too late. The ship rose into the sky, slow, then faster, then gone into the stars. In the control room, Dr. Voss stood silent, then whispered, you bonded with a monster. Now you run with one. The moon was silent, dead rock, cold wind. Old ground where no stars had shined in years. Kale stood barefoot on the soil. He held a sharp bone blade in one hand. His other hand touched the stone in front of him, a flat surface carved with deep cuts, ancient marks, each one the name of a warrior lost in exile. Carter stood back, watching, not speaking. Kale closed his eyes and began the ritual. He dragged the blade across his arm, a shallow cut, not for pain but for memory. He spoke in his own language, soft, heavy, like thunder whispered underwater. Carter did not understand the words, but he understood the meaning. Kale was saying goodbye to his people, to his old name, to the warrior he once was. After the final word, Kale placed the blooded blade on the stone and turned to Carter. He said, from this moment, I fight not for them, not for race, not for revenge. I fight for you, for us. Carter stepped forward, asked, what does that mean? Kale replied, you are now my kin, my bond, my brother in war. They returned to the ship, alone, but together. Inside the control room, Carter checked maps, signals, enemy routes. They were being hunted. Every star behind them was a trail of eyes. Kale watched quietly, then said, we must not run forever. We must return. Carter asked, return where? Kale said, to the core of the fire, to the place where the war began, my home, my shame. Carter frowned, your people will kill you. Kale looked away. Maybe, but some will listen. Some still believe in the old ways. Carter leaned back. And what if they don't? What if we both die there? Kale answered. Then we die as brothers, not as tools, not as monsters. They set the course across dead systems, through shadow space. Finally, a world appeared, large, dark blue, surrounded by broken rings and old warships. This was Kale's homeworld. As they entered orbit, a message came, low-toned, single word, return. Kale closed his eyes. They still watch, still test, still wait. Ship landed in a canyon, black rock, purple sky. Figures appeared from the mist, tall like Kale, but older, scarred, armored. Their leader stepped forward. He wore a crown made of teeth, eyes cold, voice deep. He said, you were exiled. Now you bring a human here. White Kale did not bow. He said, because this one fights without fear. Because this one calls me brother. The crowd shifted. Some growled. Some stayed silent. The leader said, you shame your blood. You speak peace in a time of fire. Kale took a step forward. Then said, your fire has burned too long. It has eaten your own sons. I will not burn with you. Carter stood beside him, hands open. No weapon drawn, he said. I do not come as an enemy. I come with him. If you fight him, you fight me too. The silence broke. The Kamzan broke. Leader raised his hand and the crowd split from the back. A female warrior stepped forward, her face marked with silver lines. She said, Kale speaks truth. I remember his voice in battle. He spared the children. He saved the weak one by one. Some began to step forward, not all, but enough. The leader growled, you bring the human virus here. You bring their weakness to our blood. Kale said, then strike me now, if your honor is true. Strike me before your people. But the leader did not move. Instead he turned and walked away. The bond was not accepted, but it was not broken. Later, Carter and Kale sat on a ridge, watching the sky turn. Neither spoke. Then Kale said, tomorrow we ask for alliance or we prepare for war. Carter looked at him and said, whichever path. We walk it together. Two hands rested on stone. One was flesh pale worn human. The other was scaled thick rough alien. Between them, a piece of cloth soaked in both bloods, red and blue. Tied in a knot, not a weapon, not a flag, a promise around them. Silence, the calm before what would come. Kale looked at Carter. His voice was quiet. Today we end what others began. Carter nodded, his voice low. Or we become the ones who finish it with fire. The canyon ahead opened into the sky. Above, Drakon warships circled like vultures below. Human fleets hovered in waiting, both sides ready, both sides afraid. Neither trusted the other, except for one and one. Kale and Carter stood at the center of it all. Not soldiers now, not even survivors, symbols. High Council of Drakon had given one choice: speak before them, prove your bond, or be judged as traitor and invader. Kale walked through the gate of stone. Alone, Carter watched from behind, watched him enter the old circle, where judgment fell like blades. Elders surrounded Kale, their faces marked by age and war, their voices sharp. You bonded with the outsider, you broke the code of blood, you walk with prey. Kale replied, I walked with truth. They said truth is loyalty. Kale said, no, truth is courage. He looked up, eyes steady, voice rising. You burned worlds in the name of strength. You called it honor, but you feared anything different. You feared change. You feared mercy. One elder stood. The one with silver mask, he said, and what do you offer instead? Human love, weakness, surrender. Kale took a blade from his belt, laid it on the ground. Not surrender, a new bond, not built on blood, but on choice. The elders murmured. The silence cracked suddenly, a tremor, a scream through the comms. Carter turned, looked at the sky. Human ships were under fire, not from Drakon, but from a rogue fleet, a third force, old enemies. War clans who refused peace. Missiles cut through clouds. Plasma ripped air. Carter shouted through the comm. All sides under attack. Repeat, all sides under attack. Kale heard the scream. He turned to the council. Your war gave birth to monsters, and now they return. He ran out of the circle, toward Carter. No more trials, no more waiting, he said. This is where we fight. Carter grabbed his rifle, tossed Kale his blade. They moved as one. Drakon warriors joined them, humans joined them. For the first time, enemies became a wall, not of hate, but of survival. The ground shook. Skies burned. Kale fought like thunder, every swing a storm, every strike a shield. Carter fought with him, not behind, not ahead. Beside, they saved wounded from both sides. They pulled down ships from the sky. They bled, but did not fall in the final hour. Kale stood before the last enemy warlord, a beast born of fire and exile. The warlord said, you chose their kind over your blood. Kale said, I chose the one who stood with me when no one else did. And then silence, a single strike, a final breath, and the battle was done. When the dust cleared, when the screams faded, only those still breathing remained. The elders came forward. One stepped close, took the blood-soaked cloth from Kale's hand. He held it high, and for the first time in Drakon history, he said, let this bond be sacred. Let it stand where war could not. Carter and Cale stood together, bruised, burned alive, not as human and alien. Not as soldier and subject, but as brothers. Later, far from battle, a child would ask, "How did peace begin?" And a voice would answer with a knot of cloth, with a promise made by two hands, one red, one blue.